So we'll open up the Monday, December 16th Environmental Review Board meeting. Dennis, we're not going to, you have minutes to approve, but we can't approve the minutes because
the combination quorum that was, the individual that was not present for each one of those meetings, combined with Ivan not being here tonight, means that I can't work out a combination where the three of you guys were here for any one of those meetings to actually approve said minutes.
So nobody would have any comments on any of the minutes at this point, because
the three of you that were at said meetings is not the combination of three that could be here to approve the minutes tonight, if that's another way to explain it. So,
all right, that's just a technicality we'll have to live with.
it's okay. We could kick it over to the next ERB meeting, that's fine.
Okay, so there are two returning applications. Anything else we need to cover before we get into the applications?
No,
Am I doing all right?
we're in a good place.
All right. So first is wetlands permit for the town of Newcastle, 231 Croton Dam Road.
Yep.
What do we have?
This is Mark Lukasik of Tectonic, who, if you guys remember, was here once before, maybe about 6-7 months ago, and did present. And the board had instructed that you wanted to wait until the town board sort of gave the okay for all of this with respect to their seeker neg deck, which they have. So at which point, Tectonic is now returning for your review, comment, and ultimately the hope of approval for a ERB wetlands permit for this project. And Mark has started sharing his screen, so I was just about to turn it over to him, so that works perfectly. Thank you, Mark.
Mark's on mute.
Hey, we may have muted you, Mark, sorry.
I think I got him off here. Mark, the screen is shared, we could see it.
How about now?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
All good, sir.
Fantastic. So I don't appear to get the camera working, but the screen is sharing, so we'll go with that. Good evening. As Dennis introduced, Mark Lukasik, Tectonic Engineering, representing the town for the Upper Minkle Dam decommissioning project. Yes, we spoke and conversed and consulted for about an hour back in May. And it was a very positive discussion. It was a great opportunity to explain this project to you folks and give the public an opportunity to hear it as well. The project, just for quick refresh, involves the removal of about 3 acres of water surface, and that is impounded by the Upper Minkle Dam, which is on the left side of the screen. Everything that is colored on the screen now is currently water. When the project is completed, there will be a mixture of permanent water surface in the light blue, transient water surface during large storm events in the darker blue, and then a mixture of wetlands and uplands in the residual area in the green. Looking at it rather than plan view, looking at it in profile view, you can see the step down of a series of interconnected pools and channels that lead through what was the impoundment of the dam. Some of the shading that's visible to some degree on this screen now represent the sediments that would be excavated from the proposed channel through the former impoundment and managed on site. When the whole project is complete, the entire basin is replanted with a detailed mitigation plan that has been developed in partnership with Westchester County on the project. So generally, that's a quick overview of what this project was. One key element for this project has been access. The parcel, Sunny Ridge Preserve, is not easily accessible from any main thoroughfare. and the water body itself is also in a difficult position, adjacent to a number of residential properties, and then just the rougher topography of the preserve itself. So the town had negotiated with a property owner. So at this point in time, in addition to the seeker that Dennis mentioned, the past few months have been engaged largely with the property owner and the town as they sought to reach an agreement for access. And the difference between what we talked about in May and what I'm going to show you in a moment here on screen is really the only difference in the documentation that you have seen in the past. On screen now is the erosion sediment control plan for the project, and it's a bit schematic and engineering in nature, but I did like it because it shows the overall outline of the water body in the center of the screen. It shows the access route down toward the roadway, which is Croton Dam Road, and it's running in a serpentine across the base of the plan view. The highlighted in green are the three little spots that the town and the property owner ultimately came to an agreement on, verbally at this point, for some additional temporary parking. The property owner currently rents the property to a number of tenants, and during the course of construction, he just wanted to make sure that those tenants had a place to park their cars. So some grading will be done, but some temporary parking will be established during the period of construction, so those folks have a place to park at night. At this point, it's with the town attorney as they're just crossing their T's and dotting their I's on the agreement. And as far as we understand it, that matter is resolved. So I did put a little quick dimension on here. This change is about 150 feet, 149 feet, plus or minus, from the nearest delineated wetland on the project. At the top of the call, Dennis mentioned the seeker, which is now in the project file with this board. November 19th, town board completed their review, so that is complete as well. So that is a quick overview. If there are any other questions for the board, happy to answer them and have any more conversation there. If there's none of that, I do believe we would request that this board consider voting on this project at this time.
Just remind us how long the project is going to take?
So the project, construction of the project?
Yeah, let's go with that. Not federal and state permitting. Let's go with the construction.
Yeah, the construction is anticipated to be about 8 to 9 month period, and it will honestly line up based on the seasons. So we'll want to target this project to wrap up in favorable growing conditions in the spring for establishment and into the summer before we can punch list and get the contractor out. And we do like to start these types of projects where we're eliminating a large amount of water and exposing an amount of sediment in the cooler winter months, if possible, to make things easier for the contractors and the adjacent residents.
And when does this go out to bid?
It will be, yes.
Well, yeah.
So this is what, 6 months away, 9 months away?
So we just, well, I guess Mark could speak to this too. We
Yeah,
just
so
received some
generally
comments.
speaking, our best case scenario, the current schedule right now envisions putting this project out to bid at the end of 2025. And we have made applications to both the state and the feds. We will go through their process. And I would believe if we aren't able to bid the project by the end of 2025, it would probably result in a 1-year delay just because of the calendar of when we want to do this work.
Okay, thank you. So does this permit time out, or do we
I would say,
conditional it?
what I typically do, and I remember having this discussion with John as the former chair and council, as long as there's no changes to the project, your approval goes sort of moving
Carry
forward. But until I draft the permit, that's sort of like when we start the clock ticking.
Okay.
So other approvals that you guys have done, I sat on them for a couple of months because who didn't apply for a building permit, or there was a comment from town engineering that had nothing to do with us, but I didn't want them to suffer the consequence of
Time out.
lost time just because of so,
Okay.
and this would have the same dynamic, really.
Makes sense.
It's a good, I mean, ecologically, it's a good project,
So we need to approve it.
needs an ERB permit, yes.
Okay. So motion to approve.
Motion to approve, made. All in favor?
All in favor?
Clean sweep, Mark.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, board. Appreciate everyone's time this evening. And I'll cede to the next applicant.
Good luck.
All right.
Good luck. Yeah.
See you in a couple years.
Yeah, right. Thanks, man.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yeah, you can't decommission the dam overnight, that's for sure. That's life.
Has the state already provided comments, or they have to first start?
The Corps just did, we have a conference call with them on Thursday. I think there's two columns. One is administrative, because they tried to pursue this through a nationwide permit, and I'm not sure that there's a mechanism for this under nationwide permit, so I may have to go to an individual permit, which is a little more involved. But, and then the second item was just some comments regarding, which kind of surprised the person that we're working with from Westchester County. They didn't mention, she actually did her and I did a walkthrough of Sunny Ridge back when, it's over a year ago, when the fires were going and air quality was bad. It was around that time. And she came up with a really nice planting mitigation plan. I believe she's an RLA, but she definitely has experience working with the county in these other dam decommissionings. And the person who was doing the review, it kind of caught us off guard, because not that they're, I don't think they're concerned that areas that are now subaquatic are not going to be subaquatic anymore, and consequently not necessarily wetlands anymore. But because of some of the regrading that has to happen, and as he talked about, managing some of the sediments on site that need to be removed and interned, they were commenting about that in relation to the Clean Water Act. And I'm like, okay, I agree that you can't do that in wetlands, but we're doing this in areas that, in my opinion, are going to formally be wetlands, because they're not going to have the hydrological support anymore. So that is news to me. It was news to Westchester County. It was news to a colleague that I used to work with at Perny, who now works at Schnabel, and they do some dam decommissionings. So we'll maybe get a little more clarification on Thursday, because he's rolling it up at the court to his superior. So it's like, are you concerned that the water's dropping? Are you concerned that the water's dropping and then after it drops, we're putting sediment where it's not going to be wetlands anymore? Are you concerned about the permitting? Is it all three? So that's why I always have a job, because wetlands is the most convoluted thing that there is. So especially between three agencies. So slightly less convoluted, if you want me to go to the second.
Ready for the
Applicant,
second,
yeah.
second
Is that your
applicant?
segue?
Sure.
Okay.
All right,
Yes.
so this is for the tree removal permit for 39 Barnes LLC. And do you want to give us a background on this? Dennis?
Sure. So this is a, for now, it's an empty lot, contains trees, and the applicant's looking to build, a single family home. And they applied for a tree removal permit. I issued that permit, that was dated November 5th. The requirements of that permit required replacement of 61 trees. The applicant was going to do a row of Norway spruce plantings to the backside of the residence, and there was gonna be some other foundation plantings, so in total, there was a 51 unplanted, uncredited trees at the end of the day, so the applicant was choosing to contribute to the tree bank fund for the unmet portion. One of the residents who had been in touch with me from the time they were notified when the initial application came in months prior. And when I sort of revealed what the planting plan was going to be, they were interested in appealing because they felt that I think the potential for more trees existed that would, benefit a neighboring, established residence and property. So that's, there's a combination, I guess, here tonight. There's the applicant, and I know at least the person who filed the appeal, and there was a second letter that had come in from the residents to the opposite side that basically was expressing the same
Yes.
concern and need.
So we want to hear from the applicant first and then
Sure.
the neighbor.
Okay, I'm Ralph Elefante, I'm the attorney for the LLC, the applicant, who's really Robert Jen and his brother, Eugene Jen, sorry. We're here, I think with some happy news. We've had an opportunity to meet with both of the neighbors on the adjoining properties, and they're both here tonight. And it turned out that when my client looked at what they were asking us to do, and they looked at what they would end up with on their own property, that ultimately it was a win-win in the sense that they would get this added screening that they wanted, and we would have a better property to sell because it would have those additional trees around the perimeter. So, I'll let them speak to it also, but we did agree initially along Mr. Petito's property line. Petito is here. We were going to plant 9 Norwegian spruce trees, 8 to 10 feet tall, at the end of our property. After speaking with him and bringing an engineer on board, a landscaping engineer on board to look at it, everyone agreed and determined that it was in the best interest to move the 9 trees from our property perimeter onto his property perimeter because it was higher. It had a higher vantage and would provide better screening. And then we would plant an additional 3 on our perimeter at the 3 spots that would enhance the overall look. Now, the 3 additional are above and beyond what we would have been required to provide.
I think it's total 6.
Total 6.
Excuse me, a total of 6.
Yeah.
I like 3 better, but.
Yeah. I was just getting the numbers right there, yeah.
Understood. Okay, so a total of 6 of the same tree, 8 to 10 foot
Right.
Norwegians. We were going to ask the town to let us use tree bank money to plant those additional 6. And the same situation is going to be the request on Mr. Post's property, which is on one of the other perimeters. They met today at the site, and there was a consensus that it would enhance everybody's property if we put 10 Norwegian spruces along, and I just heard this today, but I think it's our property line.
It's actually it's along the property, but actually on his property.
It's on his property
line, but it's on
Mr. Post's property.
on the post side of the property line. And then if I could just kind of.
Sure.
So. This is the site plan that's on the table, literally. Here's Barnes Lane. This is our subject property. This is the Petito residence, and this is the Post residence. So originally, you can actually see that because of the grading along here, we have a lot of rock here, and this is all back here. It's all undisturbed woodlands. So we were originally proposing to plant approximately 9 Norway spruces here along our property line. When Mr. Petito contacted us, we realized that, yes, sure enough, if we actually, because of the contour, sure enough, if we plant the trees on his side, it raises the height of the trees and it provides better screening for.
Can I add to that? Because topographically I'm higher.
Yes, the elevation is higher.
I would not, the screening would hurt, where they initially had it would do me no good. Because I'd be seeing the tip tops of the tree where I'm up here. So if they come up to me, it actually screens the house, whereas where they had it before,
Right, sure enough, he's right.
it didn't
We
work.
agree. We agree. So the proposal now is to take the 15 trees. I actually think some of them ended up on our property after all.
There are 6 on yours and
Yeah,
the other 9 are
and
on
the other-
mine.
the other
Yeah,
9 are
initial
over
9
here.
are on mine, right.
So we basically agreed to put more trees in along the property lines, but some on his as opposed to some on ours, because it works better. So, you
And we
know,
also consulted with a landscape architect who kind of designed that to make sure we maximize.
I do have
And it actually helps this house.
Yeah.
Because it's not right on top of it, so they get more air, so to speak.
kind of it works better for everybody.
How big a property is this?
This is approximately 1 acre.
The problem with the property was it's so tiny and it's a weird configured lot and they can't go back here. So our house is back here. This ends up being in front of all of us, which is
You can
kind of
actually
bizarre,
see-
this
You can
lot.
see the post house, and you can see, I think, just his
This is-
driveway.
See my driveway?
This is the land, this is
That's
prepared
the
by
problem.
a landscape architect, showing, the plantings along Mr. Petito's, lot line there. Some of it is on ours, but some of it is on the Petitos.
And it all lives
It's
right
on
here.
that lot line there.
So that's what's proposed over here. This afternoon, Mr. Poston and my brother and I talked, and we've agreed to plant a line of 10 evergreens along here. Mr. Petito wants, Mr. Post wants
He's
10,
requesting Norway spruces.
Norway spruces, which is fine by us. But we don't actually have a lot of space you can see our structures here, pervious surface, and we have a storm structure. We don't have a lot of leeway to plant anything on this side. So we've agreed that we plant it on his side, just on his side of the border, in order to provide screening. It seems satisfactory to, well, it's costing us a little more than we expected to, but assuming that this additional 16 trees would count toward our total overall tree count, then we're prepared to do that.
So there's a few things.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to talk to council about some sort of an easement agreement, because when you're planting trees on another property, when the permit is issued to the subject parcel, there's obviously loss of custody. If the house is sold in a year and the trees, I've already gone through this, that's why and the trees are planted, are implanted, whatever the agreement is, that needs to be, codified somehow, because if you walk away from this, if somebody's taking trees down on another parcel, if there's a violation, it's going to the other parcel, and then it doesn't get tied to this. And so, in similar fashion, in order to sort of get credit, it all needs to be tied to the parcel. So I'm not saying there's not a workaround for this, but it's something that I can't just give an immediate yes to, but I think there is, I'll speak to town council about it. The other item falls into the hands of the board. So this I did discuss with town council. When you have to replace more than 10 trees in order to get credit, you can't just plant like one species and get credit for every single one of those individuals. 121.6 in the code separates out, you have to have the minimum of 3 genus. You can't have more that's, that accounts for 1/3 of that genus. You need to have a mix of, canopy and understory trees. So, that's what's written in the code. When I discussed it with town council and we were reviewing the code, there was one loose caveat that talked about alternatives to the proposed removal. He felt that there was latitude in that word alternatives in the context of that section of the code, that if the board wanted to sort of do this 1-for-1 with respect to the purposes of screening and to satisfy the neighbors, that would be under your purview. But the planting of trees on another property, I'm gonna have to vet.
So can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
Because I'm not an expert on any of this.
Neither are we.
Neither am I at this point. That's
So-
what you guys are looking to do, but go ahead.
If the builder, you approved this permit with 9 trees,
Right,
that's all, and the tree fund.
right.
right? So when you say get credit, are you talking about the
In
tree
other
fund?
words, for him to not get double banged, meaning I'm gonna plant the tree,
So
but
it's
it's
the
gonna
tree
be on
fund
your
issue
property,
that
but I'm
you're-
not gonna get,
So what I'm trying to say is,
it's a
if
permit
he
issue.
decided to basically plant, it's only 16 trees when you think about it, right? Six
Okay.
more on this side here and then 10 here. So it's 16, so it's actually 7 more than what he agreed to do initially from your plan, from your permit,
Right,
right? So if he agrees out of his pocket to plant 7,
as
of
long
those
as that
extra 7
property is made
trees,
whole, then
then it's made whole because it's got the 9 trees that you already approved.
it's
Right.
made whole because it satisfies what's in the tree
It
removal
approves-
permit.
Right, so the only
for
issue would be,
replacement and tree bank fund.
the only issue would be whether he got credit from the tree bank for that. And I kind of say, well, the only reason why you gave money to the tree bank was because you could have planted on the property to begin with. But if you're addressing the issue caused by this building on the subject property and the surrounding areas, why can't you use the tree fund for that?
Well, the
It
tree,
makes
fu-
no sense
the
otherwise.
tree
I
bank
mean-
fund is for public properties, it's not for
Yeah, but
private
the only
property.
reason why you give it to the
So
tree bank
I
is because
see- I see
you're
what
causing
you're saying.
you're causing the harm here.
Right,
So
right,
if he's correcting the harm, he should get credit for it. That's all I'm saying.
right, but it has to be within the purview of their
Right.
property, because if this sets a precedent like that, then other people are gonna go forward and say, well, I could accommodate this, I just need to chunk a piece of this property and chunk a piece of that property, and it's like, no, you need to accommodate that within the confines of your own property limits. I know you guys are making an agreement here, but agreement or not, there's a precedent here, and I'm not counsel, so that's why I'm saying, I don't know how to
It doesn't
to
sound like
address
we
this.
disagree with what you're saying.
Right,
I am
right,
not
right.
It just has to
disagreeing
go
with you.
through the,
Now he's trying to couch it
Right,
another
sure.
way that maybe you're not setting a precedent because he's actually only adding.
once it's on a different property
7.
then.
But if
Yeah, but he could do that independently, but I guess it's the credit.
But he's-
issue.
he's
It's not-
also-
it's the credit issue.
Understand also the way this
Right.
works, he's gonna have to post a bond for 35% of the total cost of the tree installations and maintenance and monitoring going forward. So, again, the property, although he may sell it, the custody all has to stay sort of within the property lines. If trees die in a neighboring property, supposed to be responsible for replanting those trees, I don't see that being an issue. Somebody decides to take those trees out because they don't want them, and he's like, well, we planted them, we didn't say to take them out, right, but they weren't on the property that they were approved on. So, at that point, you know, there's a bit of loss of custody. Who would technically get the violation? Would it be the neighbor that took the tree out that didn't get the permit in the first place? Or is it, you know, the property that actually got the permit? So, I'm just playing devil's advocate, because again, I don't know how all this
But-
sort of plays out.
But if he met the permit for planting on his own property, made a gift of trees to his neighbor, and paid the tree bank fund,
Then I would-
and insured the
then
bond,
I have no
then
issue, 'cause
then we're
I
done
can make the
here.
Yeah,
But
accounting
then
work.
it takes, it's not.
I understand the concern you're raising, Dennis, but on that last point, I think if Mr. Petito and I, both after seeing the plantings, consented to them being installed appropriately as we agreed here, I think we would be willing to sign something that said we promise not to remove the trees.
Right, in other words-
But he's saying an easement. I don't know if you want an easement on your
planting
property.
easement?
No, but who's
You
gonna
wanna call it
remove the
planting
trees
easement?
besides
Well,
one
if
of
you ever
us?
moved
Be
and
a-
somebody
be a
didn't want those
temporary-
trees at your house,
The easement would only be to plant. Yeah,
It would be a
permanent.
planting
So
easement.
temporary.
And
Right.
maintain it, and maintain it theoretically.
Correct,
Will
correct.
maintain for how long?
Well, you want me to go through the example that I had to deal with? So we issued a
No.
tree removal, right.
you don't wanna do that?
I'm just kidding,
No, no, but, right, and both of the parties, you had party A had a house, vacant land, sold to party B, applied for a tree removal permit, gave the permit, replacement requirements, building permit to build a house. The owner who sold comes in with the closing documents, and on page 111 to 114 of the 127 pages was this easement agreement at the property line, that it needed to be maintained as lawn. Now, some of it was okay because it was around where the septic was gonna be, but trees had to be planted that screened their view from the house. So this has to be maintained as lawn, we get to cut it, they have to plant trees. Well, similar to your situation, the house abutted this rock outcrop. So now the house is done, they're calling me to say, you have to honor the easement agreement. I said, no, I don't. I said, I issued a permit, they had to do a replacement on the property. You're asking them to plant trees in an area that won't accept trees because there's a rock outcrop. All I can regulate is the landscape buffer, as it says in the code, is the regulated landscape buffer. The rest of the property, if they're using that to plant the trees, you can't dictate that it needs to go in an area where they may not survive, and then who is paying for the replantings when those trees die? So that became a mess, and now it's a bit more of a mess because neither one of those people live there anymore. So now the new neighbors are calling us, what do you mean I have to mow the lawn? What do you mean I have to? So that's where I'm coming from, because my retirement is not 6 months away, so I'm not looking to deal with this in perpetuity. And if there's a way that we can make this whole by you as the applicant, you two as the neighboring properties, and how the town needs to do this, I'm happy to follow through on that. I'm just not you. I don't have a law degree, so I'm not ready to say yay or nay to this. But I am happy that we're in agreement and that you're planting more trees.
What's the dollar value we're talking about?
Yeah,
To
that's the,
maintain-
yeah, that's the
To
end.
maintain the tree bank and not have
Or
you
being
wait
contributed to the tree bank, or maintained.
to contribute to the tree bank, so you don't have to wait this period of time.
Right,
before the
it's
legal
it's
is-
$250
gets done.
per replaced tree plus a 10% contingency. So if at the end of the day,
275
if there's,
times
if
16
there's a
trees.
half dozen trees that are gonna end up on somebody else's property, it would be better that they get contributed to the tree bank fund so that it satisfies this property's permit requirement.
So you're saying 275 times 16 trees?
16.
250 times,
Well, it's only 7 extra.
6, yeah. The-
7, right?
Whatever ends up on
10
another
plus
property, it would be
6
those,
is
yeah.
16.
So,
You're
like
done with
1,800.
$4,000,
Oh, 10 plus 6, yeah, okay.
Very nice.
which my guess will cover legal fees not to have to review this easement.
Not quite.
No, I mean, just.
Exactly.
Newcastle is a legal fee stimulus package. Let's hold on here.
That's starting legal, I'm just saying, and the time it takes to do this.
Yeah, my kids have to eat.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? If we
course.
just planted the 9 trees, how long are we responsible to make sure the 9 trees survive?
5 years would be the bond.
And we sell the house in a year and a half?
Right, and then I'm holding 35% of your money for the cost to
35%
install the
of what?
trees.
4,000.
Because I mean, the plan would not be for us to hold this lot for 5 years.
Right, no, but we hold the bond money for 5 years. So if
The bond money is equal to how much?
35% of the cost of basically the installation of the trees.
Oh, 1300.
of what?
So
The
the
cost of the
install-
installation of the trees.
So if it costs us $100, they're gonna hold $35.
Yeah.
For 5
Right,
years.
right. And that money's returned, when you ask for it in 5 years, and I'll go out and do an inspection and make sure everything, there'll be requirements in the permit to submit annual inspections, but most people don't do that, but that's why we hold the money, because in the end, at least, we try to make it whole if it needs to be made whole.
So in this case, you would have the bond for the 9 original plus the 16 extra we're talking about.
Yeah, whatever the plantings would be. The tree bank fund obviously is a walk away, that doesn't,
Right. With 25 actually trees that we're actually gonna plant.
right, those would be subject to the bond. I know that's in the, I think it's 12110 is the bonding.
And you don't use $250 a tree, you use the actual cost.
It's the actual installation costs, yeah. So for Norway spruces, you're gonna be in, I don't know, if you're in the 8 to 10 foot range, it's, I don't know, 375 to 500 a tree. That's kind of what I'm thinking of from a nursery perspective.
That's $8,000.
Plus labor,
Right,
plus labor.
Yes.
So you put labor in it also?
yes,
The 500 included labor, and that was the cost of the tree.
that's just the cost of a tree. It
We're
is.
starting it up, you're probably talking about $750 a tree.
Right, if you're gonna add, yes. I did that free of, right, that was an anomaly.
So you're talking like $14,000 or something like
Seems up.
Yeah.
that. But
that's
you
what we
asked
see.
going, right.
And we asked for 35% just to ensure that going forward.
So they spend 14 to plant and then 35 goes in escrow,
And that's-
35% goes in escrow?
Exactly,
And
exactly.
what about crediting from the tree fund?
That's entirely separate. That's for the trees you don't plant.
But the
do you
16
give them-
proposed,
The 16 would, if the board approves, would come off of the, I believe I said it was 56?
51 please.
Into the tree bank 51, I think, yeah. There's 61 replacement.
Right, because you were at, I was at a point where I gave you credit for 9,
You gave me credit for 10.
okay.
9 plus 1.
That's right.
Right, and then 51 were
51.
unplanted, so you're subtracting from 51. with
Yeah, I'm
each tree
subtracting
that
from
you-
51.
Yes,
I'm subtracting 16.
Right. So you do get the credit.
Well, that's,
I would-
that's,
well,
that's for the board's
that's the
discretion.
conversation that we're here for.
If,
Right.
if they do the easement agreement, if the town agrees, but.
That would require an easement, the easement agreement?
If you're gonna try to take credit for planting trees on a parcel other than this, I'm gonna have to investigate that further.
Without knowing what they would say.
And-
They may
and-
say no sweat, or they may say there's.
This is the agreement.
We know.
You-
And it's
you-
it's a planting easement, we just give you the right to plant on our
And then, but then
property,
apparently it's, I mean, to be
right?
transparent, it's gonna be 5 years of maintenance too.
It would be plant and maintain the trees, yeah.
For 5 years.
What's
Yeah.
involved in the maintenance?
You know,
Make sure
when you
that-
see a ton of vines covering it
Yeah.
after year 1, you know, maybe you wanna cut
Making
those
sure
vines
it's
so
not
it doesn't
dying,
choke it.
I mean, 5 years, that's
Um,
fine, it's not a
you know,
big deal.
It doesn't rain for 3
You're-
months.
Right, exactly, that's another example.
So on that
If
subject,
it dies, it
It's,
needs to be
it's
replaced.
a planting easement to get on our property to
In
plant,
order, in order.
and 5 years to
And
maintain.
and after that, it would expire.
Yes.
And if it dies, it needs to be replaced, then it'll be on,
Sure.
Yeah, then we
you'd have to deal with that.
do it, exactly.
so I just, speaking of vines and getting in the weeds, no pun intended.
Mhm.
Oh, I like that.
I just want to put one more clarification on the agreement that I reached with the Gens today, and they can correct me if I misstate anything. The area we're talking about is on my side of the line, but very close to the line, give or take in this area. There's about I'd say depending upon where you're standing, a 5 to 10 foot strip, 5 to 10 foot wide strip of land that it's like I don't know if this is the correct technical term, like an ecotone. It's like weeds and vines and brush between where the green grass of my
Right.
lawn ends
It's the no man's land where
and the
landscaping
no man's
stops
land where their
between
line
properties.
begins.
Yep,
So they've agreed to clear all that out, right? To pull all that stuff out, the brush, the weeds, the vines, prepare the soil, and do what it takes to do an appropriate planting. Because right now, you couldn't just stick a tree in there, it needs some work.
right,
And they've agreed to do all that
Okay.
as part of this deal. And the trees that the deal is based on are that 8 to 10 foot Norway spruce.
okay,
That's something particular that I wanted. I consulted with a landscape designer as well, and under the
was
circumstances,
gonna
that's the
say-
particular species that was
I
recommended.
mean, you're throwing
for
money down the drain,
a
if you're
number
just
of
gonna try to
reasons.
drop it into that and
It'll
say,
just die, yeah.
good luck,
Right.
you know, be fruitful and multiply, it's not gonna work out as well.
Right.
So that to me is just the,
It's necessary. It's a
right, I was
plant.
gonna say, it's a requirement to prepare
I
a
just want to
planting
make
bed.
sure,
So,
it's
yeah,
understood,
in
they
this
agreed to
particular
do
case-
that at their cost, and it's part of the planting.
Right, that would be, yes,
That would be part of your easement that you're agreeing to, I would assume.
Correct. The planting is.
So what do we need to do now? Do
Well,
we need
I
to
think-
come, do you need to consult with?
I need to consult, B, I think we need to see a plan, I know you guys spoke it out, I need to see something on paper, I think ultimately, because we're gonna have
We
to,
gave you this already.
right, so, I don't, it doesn't have to be professional, I obviously was willing to accept this for the initial. I think marked up over something like this has a lot more clarity than that, so I would like this, I think, as a base map, I think everybody would benefit from that, because it clearly shows property lines, and if you wanna, like you would point it out, I think that's a good idea, to maybe call out other features, with respect to where the trees are going, higher ridge, in an area that's, chock full of vines and invasive species. And then in seeing that layout, we could better vet, what we're ultimately, I would assume that the board will approve.
So that gets submitted to you?
Yes, and I think you guys are gonna be returning for the January meeting, because I don't see how we're gonna resolve all this right now.
Before that meeting, though, we would need to know from council what
Yes,
the town would accept as a.
yes, how it works.
So you need a plan that's more specific on the other properties
Yeah, if
along
you're
the
adding,
lines
if
with
you're
what's
adding
gonna,
trees, I gotta see.
if you're gonna adding trees, if there's anything that needs to be cleared, that sort of thing.
Right, I mean, I can tell you this, when I posed the question, there was a definite no answer to the question, can we not give money to the tree bank fund and just give it to the homeowners? That was a flat no, and that made sense to me, because that money's meant to go to public
No one's even
dollars.
asking that
and right.
question though.
So that, right, that was, I think Mr. Jen initially asked that question, and respectfully, he had the right to, so I
Okay,
wanted to get
okay.
an answer for him. Number two was, can trees be planted on another property and credit be given to this property? And I did not get a yes or a no. I got that doesn't bother me as much as the first question.
But I also think it's relevant that when we talk about another property, they're not talking about 5 acres away, right? We're talking about
No.
a matter of a couple of
And you
feet.
guys currently own it, and I get that.
And it's remediating the issue caused by the removal of
Correct,
the trees.
But we're all gonna die someday, assuming,
Nah.
so that's the thing, I have to think beyond the parties that are in this room, so that's why,
So Dennis.
I just need to speak to
so
council
you-
about
you-
this.
So he gave you a better answer, but but he equivocated, he wasn't sure, right?
I have to go with him, to him probably with something more specific, which now, at the
So-
time, it was just a hypothetical question, so now I'm something more specific.
But if we had this agreement and gave you the supporting doc in terms of the specifics, and the board said, I'm not putting words in your mouth, the board said, we're okay with this subject to council's approval. And if you submitted to council and said, no, yes, we can do that,
Right,
why do you need another hearing? That's what I'm saying. If the board,
but because nothing's been decided yet.
but if the board did it subject to that, making sure that legally it was okay.
We need to hear from the lawyer first. I think,
Yeah,
before we
so,
say-
Before you-
so you're asking them to approve with multiple conditions,
Only one condition.
one of which has never been vetted. If you guys are comfortable doing that, that's up to you.
It was one condition, it was, if you had come today and said the lawyer said you could do
No,
that.
there's two items. The other item is that I'm giving them credit for trees beyond 10 because they're not consistent with 121-6.
Oh, I got it on the
So
variety.
that was
Okay,
another,
okay, I
yeah.
got it.
So there's just a couple of balls in the air, that's
If
why.
they threw in 3 hollies, would you be happy with that or something, or no, like anything?
There's any number of evergreens that people have played the mix and match game to accommodate that. And I've gotten, blasted for that too, because they're like, I don't understand, they mixed up the evergreens, that's consistent with the code. I'm like, I know it's not the deciduous woodland that once existed, but I said, you can't have everything. So
Is there any benefit to mix up the species of the trees for this particular case than plant 19 of the same tree?
the only reason you would do that is because if that tree species doesn't like it there, you pretty much, your trial
Replacing
and
the
error
other
is
trees,
not, you're not getting any,
But
Just so
when
they-
we talk about that
trial and
total
error.
number, it's 2 completely different areas that we're talking about, right? It's one on one, right? They're, it's not like they're all clumped together. I got 10, and he's got the others on the other side.
I'm just asking if there's any
Alright.
benefit to you
Right,
to
no, I understand.
different
And
species, not.
For me, I'd rather have all the same.
Or do you have anything growing there already that,
It's a
seems to
good
be
question,
working?
I mean,
You
there's
know.
a benefit to having, you don't want a wall of evergreens and, that's why we wanted to spread them out.
Well, you could have a wall of evergreens, but he's saying if you mix up the species, because sometimes you don't know what will work and what,
If one
It
gets,
won't work.
catches disease, chances are you lose them all,
Well,
as opposed
right,
to.
Yeah, I would mix them, I don't
I mean,
really
that's more
care,
your call.
as long as they
on that.
can grow tall enough and I don't want to face the wall of green though either. Because I do have natural woodland now. But, natural woodland's not gonna help me in the winter when I'm looking at this house. It's gonna go up like 55 feet and it's only 20 feet high. I'm gonna be staring right at this thing. So that's why you need some evergreens now to kind of,
Yeah, I was just like, different species of evergreen
that would work.
be
Right, because if you
beneficial
do,
or
like,
not.
it's the same, because they obviously hear wetlands permits more often, and it would be the same for a wetlands permit. It's like, yeah, we wanna put in 80 of this single shrub species. I'd be like, you may wanna mix up species, because just in case, like, if it doesn't work out, you'll lose all 80, you know? And,
Right, but for here, I mean, 10 is not a lot of trees to begin with. And
yeah, it's not the
For-
number of trees, it's
for
the
me-
species.
for
We just
me-
wanna make sure the species works.
No,
Yeah, and
I
again, I see it all throughout Newcastle, so we're not expecting it to fail, but it's just, it's a fair point to bring up when you're
There's-
talking about biology, because there are no absolutes, so.
understood,
So
So
you
so
have
we
to do
mixed
what you have
up
to do, but.
half the Norwegian and, or Norway and half of some other evergreen.
Well,
Yeah,
at this,
ar-
at this
arborvitae's
point,
are popular.
at this
Everybody loves
point,
those.
just so I'm clear, at this point, the agreement is based on the Norway spruce, and there's a lot of reasoning behind that.
That's fine.
I'm not
You know,
challenging it. I'm
if
just-
there was another, if there was
asking
another
if it's
tree on the
benefits, yeah.
table, I'm not a tree expert, so I'd have to look into that to learn more
Or
about.
talk to Raymond.
These are the trees I'm comfortable
He
with.
does a lot
of
That's
plantings
what the
for
agreement is
sure.
based on.
Do you know what's such a tree?
Lemon-Bill,
You know
yeah,
Ram? He's
they
a
would know
really
all
good
this
guy.
stuff.
He would know.
Yeah, I know.
He would know. I
Just
could
the other
call
thing,
him.
in terms of the precedent issue and the concern,
Yeah,
I mean, you have, the neighbors are here, the contours of their property are what made the idea make sense. And it's unprecedented in your experience and, you know, your concern. The precedent can the condition that you granted can be narrowly defined to this circumstance, where your neighbors are higher than you are.
and that may be the
Makes
answer.
sense.
I just not comfortable giving an answer, because I just don't know. And in fact, it would be helpful, now that I'm thinking about it, if you can prepare that plan and get it to me, then I could actually kind of do the show and tell, you know, for council and say, this is the deal. It's not all the trees, it's some of them, it's a mix and match. As you can see, it's, you know, the interface of the property line, one way or the other. How does this get approved and vetted and wrapped into the bond going forward, et cetera, et cetera? That's the
And then
question.
the last thing I would ask, and then considering that they're doing this, my clients are doing this to satisfy the neighbors and to make their line of sight less blocked.
Right, all parties are in agreement, that will definitely be,
Isn't there some way that these guys could get something from that tree fund back without anybody feeling that they're doing above and beyond? They could be sitting here tonight saying, look, we followed the letter of the variance requirement. You know, we're not doing anything.
as I said, all I could share is what I shared prior with respect to the two answers that I received. You're not in no territory, that's all I could say. I just don't know how to get you to yes, that's it.
So,
But do you think you could get credit for the 16 trees they planted?
I think
Well, we could approve that, right?
That's this board's decision, right?
We could approve, we could approve getting credit, correct?
You could approve the credit part.
Mhm.
Where they end up, that's the.
And the
key point.
conditions related to that are where the lawyers are gonna tell you.
Right, exactly.
So that could get approved subject to the attorney's agreement.
However you
And
guys
those are
wanna
conditions.
do this.
If we propose along the path.
So what is the proposal being put forth?
They would like to propose that we do is approve as much as we can now.
No, what is,
So the proposal
what
is
is the,
give them-
10,
They spend less to the tree
no,
bank for
what is the proposal they are making?
that,
Well, let me see.
Region, you say that it's yours, that's what you need, not
Let's
really.
put it somewhere. We propose to plant 10 trees here on the post property. We propose to plant 6 trees on our property and 9 trees on the Petito property. So that is 25 trees total. We propose that those 25 trees count toward our overall tree count. And that will pay into the fund for the remaining 26 trees.
Correct.
And that's the proposal. And
But net number, but you're also taking away the other 9 that you had.
No,
no, we have a total of 10 plus 15.
Are these
plus
going to
15.
stay?
And the foundation plantings would go in.
Right, but these 9 Norway
for
spruces
nine,
that you
that's what
originally
I'm saying.
proposed, are they gonna stay?
Yeah,
or
so
not?
it's
They're
not-
gonna
it's
stay,
net-
but
it's
they're
net
moving to
16.
the Petito
Net 16,
property.
yeah.
It's only next 16 extra trees, that's what he's saying.
Well,
Credit for
that's 16, but the proposal is
Right.
overall we'll plant 25.
25 instead of
trees
9.
Okay,
instead of
I-
nine.
That's what I'm asking, what is
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to make
your
clear.
proposal?
25 instead of 9
that's
plus.
why I'm asking for a plan.
One plus
'cause
one, where's the
Well,
other one?
the
I'm
shrub,
getting-
the foundation plants all count collectively
Just
as
one, got it.
10 for Mr. Post, 6 for you, that's 16,
Plus
plus
the
the
original,
9 that would originally
Exactly,
proposed.
plus,
right.
plus the
16
one,
plus 9 is 25.
25, exactly.
plus the one that counted for the shrubs, so we're planting total
Yeah,
26.
25.
We get
plus
credit for
one.
26 trees,
We get a credit for one for the foundation planting, that's 26.
so we'll pay into the fund for
So
25.
51
All right, we'll
minus
give you that.
26 is 25.
That's the proposal,
Whereas now you're only getting credit for 10 now.
correct.
Yeah, you plant a tree, you're asking to
Yeah.
plant a tree, you get credit.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly, I got it. Okay,
So that's the proposal on the table, and as it were, and
okay. So,
Go ahead.
so if the 26 trees were planted on their property, it would be a no-brainer, we'd say yes. And the balance is into the fund. So they're asking for an approval to plant 26 trees, subject to council saying where the trees can be planted. So I don't have a problem subsequent to them submitting a plan to you and council approving the location of it if it is off their property, if it's outside of the property. On that condition,
Okay, so you don't need to see a plan now.
as long as
Okay,
you're okay with the plan, the species, and the location. And council's okay with putting trees not on their property, on somebody else's for credit.
did you get all that, and that made sense to you? Okay,
Makes sense to anybody else?
now,
Yeah.
we,
You said it very succinctly.
That was right. That
Yeah.
was
Okay.
simple.
I believe that Mr. Post would like to see the 10 trees on his property line to be all Norway spruces, 8
Right.
foot. Okay, the original proposal that we had from Mr. Petito's landscape architect was also calling for same Norway spruces, 8 foot height.
okay,
So, that's what we're also looking to try to do, if it's possible, to, having to mix and match different,
Yeah,
species.
he brought it up again, from a botanical perspective, he brought it up from a success failure, illumination perspective, not preference. So if that's what you guys want, that's fine.
There's a
Okay.
5-year bond, so if they don't die,
There is, exactly.
it's funded.
Or if they all go like this, because sometimes evergreens get a little funky, you gotta stake them in, yeah, so.
Cool.
Okay. So then,
But-
go ahead.
I was gonna say, but that sounds like an intact proposal, and I don't think we wanna approve this without knowing that the off-property easement is okay. So we wanna
The
actually,
approval, in my view, would be if all those trees are planted on their property,
right.
I'm good if he approves the plan.
Right.
If trees have to be planted off the property to make this work, then it's subject to town council's approval. And a plan that you still approve.
That sounds good.
So I'm definitely gonna need a plan.
You what?
So I need a plan submitted to me showing all this, labeling both properties, property lines, and this would be a good base
Yeah.
to have
In other words,
versus.
I can.
I understand why you use that, I have nothing against it for this meeting and this purpose, but
Right.
ultimately,
So
unless.
I can transplant basically
Transplant.
Transpose it, yeah.
Little bit.
No reason I've done that
To
one.
the side of mine, that's what I'm
Yes,
gonna do.
Exactly,
Okay.
that would be helpful.
I got you, right. Okay.
And indicate, somewhere, what that circle represents.
Right.
Norway spruce, 8 feet.
Yeah.
Bald and burlap,
Yeah,
whatever.
I did, I know.
So
Exactly.
if council says yes, then what's the next step after?
I don't know. Yes may mean you need to draft this, and then you two need to sign, or the town needs to draft this, and you guys need to sign.
But
or-
whatever conditions council imposes, if
Well,
we meet the goal is not to have to come back in January. Have we met that goal?
Subsequent to town council responding to the question, you guys providing a plan that he approves.
And then, right, we meet all the conditions he sets,
Right.
then we don't have to come back.
Yeah, and I guess you reissue a permit at that point, and then I guess somebody else can object to the
I would,
permit, right?
I would have to draft an
Yeah, so
ERB,
then,
draft the ERB permit, it would be an entirely new permit, it would be them as the approving authority, and it would include the language about the bonding and everything else, and
right, and then somebody
If it's happening,
theoretically
it's gotta
could
go
appeal
start-
that.
It's gotta go over, start all over again?
you know something, I'm not sure what happens, if you were to appeal an ERB issued tree removal permit, I'd have to see if it goes to the planning board or not, that would be,
You don't even
that
know.
would be the highest authority.
There's nobody else interested.
No one else would care.
Right, you're the only two parties that had contacted me with respect to the notification.
Yeah, so absent that, there shouldn't be another hearing, that's what I'm saying.
If this board doesn't want one and I don't receive an appeal, then yeah, there would not be
Right,
reason
that's what
for
I'm saying.
another one.
Right.
Do we need to take a vote?
Yep,
Okay. So to sum it up,
There
you sum it up.
Yeah.
So the motion
Howard.
on the table
Like
is to plant 16 trees on 2 adjacent property owners' property.
No.
In lieu of
No,
I got 25 trees is what they would say.
20, okay. The motion is to plant 25 trees on 2 adjacent property owners' property, subject to town council and applicants' agreement on what,
The applicability of replacement requirements being met for this parcel.
I'm sorry, it's actually, it's only 19
Right,
trees.
6 are gonna be on our property.
It's 19 trees.
No,
Nine
what's
on
the total
mine.
number? What is the total number?
25.
That's, listen, it's all or none, don't start doing that, because then you're gonna end up shooting yourself in the foot. We're going all or none
Do you
here.
wanna go all or none
Yeah, it has to be all or none.
It's a new
You
permit.
mean all 25 have to be off of
on
our
our
property?
property?
No, all 25 you want to count.
In the
Oh,
permit.
That's how we're
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
at
yeah,
it, so
Okay,
yeah,
hold on,
yeah.
there's 26 trees.
that's why we need.
26
It's
trees.
25 trees and foundation plantings.
All right, do you want
that
to,
equal
so we're not gonna
one
count
tree.
the foundation plantings for now?
Keep that out right now.
So there's 25 trees.
Right,
9 of which they're already
Approved.
approved for, they
Right.
got credit for. So there's 16 additional trees,
right,
okay, that they're planting,
right.
right?
Right.
Yeah, we got the
16
25.
additional,
Yep,
16 additional.
Okay.
So that's number one. So they
Yeah.
want credit for 16 additional. But the way
I'll
these
say
trees,
25 total, same thing.
so taking that 16 plus their 9, and they're
Yeah.
gonna split those up.
Yep,
6 on their property, 10 on his.
We don't, but we
don't
don't
care.
care, no, we don't care.
Don't
We're
care.
issuing a permit.
don't care, I'm trying to get you an all.
25 trees.
Yep,
25 trees.
that's what he's
We'll
trying
make it
to get
26
you
with a
to.
plan.
It's net 16. More.
With that, we're making a new permit is being issued, I think.
Exactly, yeah, this doesn't.
And it will get credit towards the bank.
Of the 51.
Right, in
Of
other
the
words,
51.
all 25 trees will count towards replacement per chapter 121-6.
I'll second that. All in
Does
favor?
anybody need to read that back, so when we do the minutes of this
She's
one,
gonna ask
no
you
one will
tomorrow.
have Any idea?
Yeah,
I will ask tomorrow and I'll listen to the video if I have to.
Thank you.
Sorry to torture you with this
Do
one.
you wanna listen to that?
And
So in my mind, it's 25 trees you're planting. Where it gets planted is up to council and yourself. But that's what you're asking us to do, subsequent to a plan submitted and approved by Dennis, that the species, the location, and all of that is acceptable.
and remainder of trees removed still are paid to the tree.
correct.
Perfect. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks for getting together, and making a plan, yeah, that's cool.
See, I told you that would help.
I thought that would make it easier.
Yeah, it is. Oh, it did.
Seemed-
Oh, it
seemed
did.
like-
That was easy?
seemed like it was less
This
painful.
is why I have a job.
Wanna go for a root canal now?
Nothing's easy in this council.
No,
It's less
Look at this,
painful.
baby. I don't know how I'm still keeping this. I've been here 5.5
So
years.
you're gonna let everybody know what's going on, or?
I need to see a plan. Ball's in your court right now.
Yeah, we'll draw them in.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, good luck.
Okay,
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, really appreciate it.
I make no guarantees that we're gonna get resolution in 2024 in consideration of the timing of the
Okay. Like
holidays. That's all I'm saying, but definitely.
Is that right? Yeah.
All right.
She's
So again,
this is the primary care doctor.
close it out in my
Oh,
head.
that's what she does.
It's 16 trees.
Oh, okay.
Trying to avoid paying into the.
They had originally agreed
Where?
to nine,
Mass General also? But
only
they,
on
what you
their
do?
property.
But they were. Council says return on somebody else's.
She's internal
property
medicine
won't
too, but
work.
she does
Right.
primary care, yeah.
It's 16 trees, 10 and 6,
Oh.
that they can still,
I think that's what they were communicating. I want the plan before I commit to any
Oh,
number.
which is the 16 trees that, whatever,
Right,
at 250.
so at that point, exactly, at that point, it'd be like, look, I can credit what you get on the right, I can credit what's on your property.
We'll see.
You can plan it the way on their property so that they don't come back and, you know, look
That's you.
difficult,
You've got a good
difficult,
neighbor.
exactly. And then put the rest of the tree bank fund,
It's
spend it all. I have no idea, so that's why.
You bring up a fair point, it kind of like really simple.
Yep,
But having neighbors is a worthwhile endeavor also.
correct.
I
Doing it
have
makes sense to me.
3 meetings
Right.
on,
I'll get
Up to 16 trees, but
cause that is
it's gonna take
something.
another 3 months, 4 months to go
That
through
is,
the process.
yeah,
Well, that's the thing,
it's
like,
interesting.
you're gonna get me something, I'm gonna send it to town council.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
No,
But how far along are they on the
because
other
here's the
permit?
problem, the phrase that you gave me, when I talked to the town
I
attorney
know, I
before the
never did
planning board
anything
meeting,
with land use,
and I think it was
but after my kids.
talking about cows, who no longer owns the property. I said, how does that work? He goes, approval to run with the land. That's the phrase. So these guys sell, those trees need to be there. Technically.
It doesn't change.
So, right, approvals run with the land, that's it.
I've worked with them a lot.
The new tenants seem to be
But
tenanting that land.
enforcement of that may be difficult, but that's how the concept and application work. That's what he told me, approvals run with the land.
Now they're all best friends. See how environmental review brings people together.
All right, sir, anything else?
That will do it for this year. I have nothing
What a year.
pressing right now for 2025 that someone has proposed at this point. They're kicking it down the road. When I told them, I forgot even which application it may have been, but they were just, you know, the inquiry stage. If I do this, that I'm gonna have to go to ERB. Okay, we're contemplating. We just wanted to know. That's about as much as I've had discussion with regards to you guys for next year at this point.
All right, so I hereby close the ERB meeting. All in favor?
Oh, very much so.
Yes.